Okay, students. So today we are going to discuss about types of passive transport. What are the various types of passive transport? First is simple diffusion. Second is facilitated diffusion, wherein diffusion takes place with the help of external assistance. And then there's filtration. And fourth is osmosis. What is simple diffusion? Movement of substance from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. The difference in the concentration of the two areas is termed as a concentration gradient, and the process of diffusion continues until this gradient neutralizes. So it is basically the movement of substances from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. The difference in the concentration is known as the concentration gradient, and diffusion occurs in liquid and gases because these particles move randomly from one place to another. It is an important process in living things required for different life processes, and the substances move in and out of the cells by simple diffusion. Facilitated diffusion, passive transport of ions or molecules across the cell membrane to specific transmembrane integral proteins. Okay, and the molecules which are large and insoluble require larger carrier requires a carrier substance for their transportation through the plasma membrane. So molecules or ions which are heavy in size, which are large or insoluble, they require carrier substance for their transportation. This process does not require any cellular or external energy. Glucose transporter, ion channels, and aquaporins are some of the examples of facilitated diffusion. The cell membrane is permeable only to a few molecules that are smaller in size and non-polar. Therefore, facilitated diffusion with the help of the transmembrane protein is important. Filtration, the process of separating solids from liquids and gases, and the selective absorption of nutrients in the body is an example of filtration. The process does not require any energy and takes place along the concentration gradient. So filtration is basically the process of separating of solids from liquids and gases. The selective absorption of nutrients in the body is an example of filtration. The process does not require any energy and takes place along the concentration gradient. In the process of filtration, the cell membrane permits only those substances which are soluble and could easily pass through its pores. The kidneys are an example of biological filter. The blood is filtered by the glomerules, and the necessary molecules are reabsorbed. Osmosis, water and other molecules pass through a selectively permeable membrane in order to balance the concentration of other substances. Osmosis is affected by the concentration gradient and temperature, and the greater the concentration gradient, the faster is the rate of osmosis. Also, the rate of osmosis increases with the increase in temperature. What are the examples of passive transport? So basically, ethanol enters our body and hits the bloodstream. It happens because the ethanol molecules undergoes simple diffusion and pass through the cell membrane without any external energy. Reabsorption of nutrients by the intestines by separating them from the solids, waste, and transporting the nutrients through the intestinal membrane into the bloodstream. When a raisin is soaked in water, the water moves inside the raisin by the process of osmosis and it swells. So till now we have discussed 4 different types of passive transport. That is, one is diffusion, then filtration, then facilitated diffusion, and then is osmosis. So in diffusion, what happens is diffusion is basically when the movement of the substances takes place from a higher region of higher concentration to lower concentration, and the differences in the concentration level is known as the concentration gradient. It requires some energy, and it is an important process in the living cells. It is required for different plants life processes. Facilitated diffusion, in this it happens with the help of through a specific transmembrane integral proteins, and the molecules which are large and insoluble require a carrier substances such as those, and it does not require any energy or internal or external cellular or external energy. And in this, the facilitated diffusion takes place with the help of a transmembrane proteins. Filtration is basically how it happens in our body. It's a process of separating solids from liquids and gases. It takes place with the example of it does not require any energy and takes place along the concentration gradient. Difference in the concentration. It is a process. In the process of filtration, the cell membranes permits only those substances which are soluble and could easily pass through the pores. So in this, what happens is basically passes through the pores. It allows only those substances which are soluble and can easily pass through the pores. It does not require any specific energy or specific help. The kidneys are the best example of filter. Osmosis, in this, what happens is eight molecules, water and molecules pass through a selectively permeable membrane from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, and it happens till the concentration gradient becomes equal. Examples we have discussed, ethanol enters into our bloodstream, but it also undergoes a simple diffusion pass through the cell membrane without any external energy. Then reabsorption of nutrients by the intestine, separating the solids from the liquids and gases from the liquids, is also an example of passive transport. When a resin is soaked in water, water moves inside the resin, and it happens with the help of a passive transport, with the process of osmosis. Active transport versus passive transport. Active transport requires energy. It does not require cellular energy. It circulates from the area of lower to higher concentration, this from higher to lower concentration. It is required in the transportation of molecules such as protein, large cells, complex sugars, ions, etc. It is required in the transportation soluble proteins. It transports various molecules in the cell. It is involved in the maintenance of equilibrium and inside the cell. Active transport is a dynamic process, and passive transport is a physical process. Active transport is a highly selective, and it is partly non-selective. Active transport is a rapid process. Passive transport is comparatively slow process. It transpires in one direction and transpires bidirectionally. Okay, so in the next class we'll discuss about some of the questions.